Bowing to pressure, the president flips on family separations at the border and why some border agents disagree. In waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on the president's travel ban, the key legal challenges reviewed by justices.
So here it is that women, older women, younger women, are playing his great male roles. Why not?
Exploring a gender twist on a Shakespeare classic and why the Bard works for any generation. It's better than pomp and circumstance. The classmates celebrating a special milestone in the heart of downtown San Diego. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebone Monet. The images and sounds of children forced to leave their parents at the border have sparked an emotional outcry around the nation. President Trump responded today with a new executive order.
So we're keeping families together, and this will solve that problem. At the same time, we are keeping a very powerful border, and it continues to be a zero tolerance. We have zero tolerance for people that enter our country illegally.
This order is supposed to end the forced family separations after they cross the U.S. border illegally. This marks a dramatic turnaround for the president. He has repeatedly said his administration had no choice but to separate families. He blamed the Democrats, federal law, and a court decision. Today's order will continue the practice of locking up immigrant families under the president's zero-tolerance policy. But a San Diego spokesman for the National Border Patrol Council says he doesn't agree with the public outcry on family separations. KPBS Frontiers reporter Jean Guerrero explains.
Joshua Wilson is the vice president for the San Diego chapter of the National Border Patrol Council. He says family separations aren't a big deal, since they result from a policy that helps Border Patrol agents do their jobs well. He says Trump's zero-tolerance policy deters asylum seekers from crossing the border illegally, allowing Border Patrol agents to focus on dangerous smugglers.
But because the media has chosen to prey upon the public's emotion rather than their intellect, this whole issue has been clouded. This is the biggest non-issue, the biggest nothing burger.
He says separating children from parents while they're in criminal proceedings is better than jailing them together. It's unclear how Trump's order is going to be implemented, since a court ruling prohibits jailing of children. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Despite the President Trump's reversal on migrant family separations, protests continued across the country. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy has more on today's demonstration in front of the county administration building.
Amid the public outrage, some community activists here in San Diego are protesting what they say is Walmart's role in a child migration detention center in Texas.
The group of activists was small, but their message was loud and clear.
I'm here to take a stand against corporations that have no empathy, who put profit before people.
The dozen protesters say Walmart knowingly sold one of its old supercenters in Brownsville, Texas in 2016 to a company that would lease the building to a child immigration detention center.
We call out Walmart. You knew that you were selling this for this purpose. So come out and say never again.
As of Monday, the facility was holding nearly 1,500 boys between the ages of 10 and 18. Many of their parents had been detained for crossing the border illegally. Some of the minors had crossed the border alone.
You have the largest corporate structure in the United States, perhaps even the world. You can do a lot about this.
Walmart recently tweeted they had no idea their store would go to be used in such a disturbing way. The activists displayed documents they say prove Walmart continues to receive payments toward the sale of the property. Among the protesters was San Diego Unified School Board member Richard Barrera. He believes the president backed down because of overwhelming pressure. He hopes the momentum continues.
People across all political beliefs, across all regions of this country, across all backgrounds are standing up and saying, this is not who we are as Americans.
Barrera is encouraging people to take part in the Families Belong Together march and rally on Saturday at the Civic Center Plaza in downtown San Diego from 10 a.m. to noon. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
Several governors, Republicans and Democrats, have recalled National Guard troops from the border due to the president's family separation policy. California Governor Jerry Brown won't be one of them. In April, Governor Brown agreed to send 400 National Guard members to help with border security. The governor's office is calling the president's policy callous and very insensitive, but says there's no plan to end the National Guard mission. It's been more than a year and many legal challenges since President Trump's first travel ban. The Supreme Court may soon provide a ruling. KPBS reporter Taryn Minto speaks with an immigration and appellate attorney to break down the case.
Remind us who the policy actually bans and why the president says it is necessary.
Sure. The current version of the travel ban, which went into effect in late September 2017, bans individuals from 8 different countries. The 6 that most people tend to focus on are 3 in Africa, Libya, Chad, and Somalia, and then 3 in the Middle East, Iran, Yemen, and Syria.
The legal fight between California and President Trump played out today in Sacramento. A federal judge heard arguments from both sides over the state's sanctuary laws. Last year, California limited the type of information that can be shared with federal agents in deportation cases. Several local governments, including the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, are publicly supporting the Trump lawsuit.
But this is history in the making, and we're doing the right thing by exhibiting our values, California values, not Jeff Sessions' values.
I think what we're doing is we're just poking the bear, because California is not bigger than the union.
No decision has been announced for today's hearing. Either way, it will likely be appealed. California may be the first in the nation to tighten standards for when police can use deadly force. The bill moved forward in a state Senate committee yesterday. It calls for limiting police use of deadly force to situations where it's necessary to prevent imminent and serious injury or death to the officer or another person. California's current reasonable force standard makes it rare for officers to be charged after a shooting.
Hello, graduates. It is I, your cute and furry Professor Paul Grover. Ah, look at you, all grown up and about to graduate.
And Apple finds its way to Sesame Street today. The company says they're teaming up to create children's programming for Apple streaming services. The long-running Sesame Street program, which airs on PBS and HBO, is not part of the deal. Apple is tapping other big industry names like Oprah to compete with Netflix and other streaming services. It's graduation season, and today a special group of students took the stage at Father Joe's Villages downtown. KPBS video journalist Katie Shulov introduces us to the new graduates.
Proud parents, caps and gowns, teary-eyed teachers, that song. Graduation day can be stressful.
Congratulations.
Especially when you're 5.
Okay. Be happy. You can have fun.
But with some words of encouragement from her dad, Viviana King cheered right up, just in time for her musical performance.
So far away, I hold you in my arms. I just got promoted from kindergarten, but I was a little shy.
Viviana is now a preschool graduate from the Father Joe's Villages Therapeutic Child Care Center. The majority of her 24 classmates are homeless.
It inspires you to do your best in your life.
Mark Galindo, in a tux for the occasion, is one of the preschool's 3 teachers. He says it's the only program of its kind in San Diego, with therapists and psychologists on hand to assess the kids' needs.
It's amazing to see how fast they grow up in the world that they live in. But when they come into our classroom, they know exactly what to expect on a daily basis. including snacks and lunch, including having their roof over their head, but also with their friends that come in and visit with them. It's just that routine that saves the day, that allows them to learn and thrive.
Love you.
Oh, they made you a candy lane.
Viviana lived at Father Joe's in 2016 with her mom, Christina Lemoyne. When Lemoyne left a year later, she kept Viviana enrolled because...
kind of like family, like they're basically her second home.
Lemoyne says she couldn't have looked for work during the day and gotten back on her feet without the preschool.
I appreciated the therapy part of it and the support that I had for them to help keep her off these streets during the days. It gave me a stability for her.
Lemoyne and Viviana live with family in Southcrest now, and Viviana starts kindergarten at Cesar Chavez Elementary in August. Katie Shula, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, facing growing outrage over his immigration policy, President Trump changes course to keep children with their parents. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Actress Kate Burton is probably best known for her film role in Big Trouble in Little China and her TV roles in Scandal and Grey's Anatomy. Currently, she stars as Prospera in the Golden Globe Theater's gender-swapped production of Shakespeare's The Tempest. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando goes behind the scenes to check out the production.
The Tempest was likely William Shakespeare's final play. It revolves around a magician who orchestrates a shipwreck in much the same way a playwright lays out a plot on stage. But when the Bard's plays were performed some 400 years ago, there were no actresses on stage, says Kate Burton.
Originally, all the women were played by young men. He was writing female roles, some of the greatest female roles that have ever been conceived. I've played many of them for young men. And so here it is that women are playing his great male roles. Why not?
Why not is exactly what director Joe Dowling was thinking. He decided to change the male lead of Prospero into the female Prospera and cast Burton in the role.
The issues that are big in the play, those of protecting her young, the idea of the eventual reconciliation and forgiveness, they're not solely male attributes.
You know, we discussed playing Prospero as a man, which has been done by many actresses. And then as I was reading it, I thought, no, let's just make her a woman. That was Joe Dowling, our wonderful director, his initial instinct. And that's what's so terribly exciting for women right now, is that, you know, you can play this part as a man, you can play this part as a woman. It is equally and differently wonderful.
It also means that people who think they know the play may be prompted to look at it with fresh eyes.
The operative word, fresh eyes. You know, any Shakespeare play, and this is the beauty of him as a writer as well, is that you can put many different turns and takes on it.
Absolutely. The words of Prospero coming out of the mouth of Prospera take on a decidedly different twist, and it's great.
Actor Robert Foxworth.
The enlightenment that women playing traditional male roles bring to the language and the understanding of the play, I think will be very, very awakening to people.
That's the thing about Shakespeare's writing. It works for every generation.
I think that's true. And so I think the plays really do demand, every time one does them, to look at them through the prism of where we are now. Thank goodness, finally, there is an acceptance that women in Shakespeare can play whatever role that they're suited to, as opposed to whatever role their gender determines. Then that does give an audience a new look at the play.
The thing is about this writing that is so extraordinary is that, as I say, it hits you at different points in your life, and there's always those moments in rehearsal where you just have to stop and take a breath and go, what is the genius of this man?
Wow.
400 years later, we're still doing these plays.
The Tempest is also a play that's very much about theater and performance.
That's the reason why we've taken the look we have at it, which is that in some way on this desert island there is an abandoned theater, and that's where Prospera has made her home, and that's where the play takes place.
So it's the wooden O, the rounded O, and you know, he even makes a reference to it in one of my speeches in the second act, the great globe itself. And so you know there's double entendres of everything that he talks about, particularly with Prospero in the second act, he's saying goodbye. So the fact that we are in this extraordinary theater within a theater is just what it does. It helps us, the actors, tell you the story.
And though it wasn't sort of designed as a Shakespearean Elizabethan stage, it has all the elements, the doors below, the balconies above. So it has all those elements that allow us to really explore the play. But it also, coming from the notion that this is a play about performance, then it heightens those performances.
David Reynoso's costumes also heighten that sense of performance.
He has interpreted the play in exactly the terms that I've been talking about. I mean, very theatrical, somewhat glitzy, a feeling that it is about performance, and yet he's managed to keep the sort of contemporary look.
And a contemporary spin to the play's idea about the rarer action is in virtue than in vengeance.
So whether it's on a personal level or on a level of international politics, I think it's terribly important to understand that message and to recognize that even though Prospera has been badly treated, appallingly treated, she's capable at the end of saying to her brother, whom she loathes for what he did, she's saying, I forgive you. And that's a huge message that I think we can all learn from good old Willie.
Indeed. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
The world's first known manta ray nursery has been found in the Gulf of Mexico. A graduate student from UC San Diego and other researchers discovered the habitat off the coast of Texas. Little is known about the species since they're rarely seen in coastal waters, making them hard to study. Researchers plan to tag the animals and track their behavior. Mantas were listed as threatened under the U.S. Endangered Species Act earlier this year. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, accountability in San Ysidro. Prosecutors say they're looking into former school district officials for the potential of fraud. And on Midday Edition, Beth Accomando has details on the annual Fringe Festival, which begins tomorrow in downtown San Diego. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.